But we talked about type 1 filter probably a lot before the midterm exam. We recall that we were talking about what is the way we design the filter. Okay? So the way we design a low-pass filter is by windowing the ideal response. And the ideal response itself is evenly symmetric, around time 0. Right? The ideal sinc function is symmetric. Now we apply a window that is also evenly symmetric around time 0. And the result is a zero-phase filter with a zero group delay at different frequency. And we know that it satisfies this relation. Okay? So in total, it's going to have actually 2m plus 1 samples. And we strip everything, we keep the middle part. Right? We keep the middle part, we strip everything to the right. And the result is 2. I should say, hey, you know, the result is a type 1 filter. So this, we have talked a lot. If you notice, we have talked a lot about this. For example, low-pass design, low-pass filter design. Okay. So far we talked about a lot about. Actually, we have talked a lot about type 1 even before the midterm. But last time, last Thursday, we mentioned an example of type 4 actually. So that's last time. Last time, we talked an example of not a low-pass filter but a differentiator. And that the example we had was a differentiator. We know that for a continuous time function, when we say we differentiate a function, that means we take the first derivative, right? So in the continuous time kind of prototype, if you will, the prototype is to perform this differentiation. So if we want to kind of put the analogy and design a discrete time system that sort of does the same job, so it's very intuitive that we will be subtracting one sample from the previous sample. No, subtracting the previous sample from the present sample. Subtraction, because DDT is, as the definition of calculating the first derivative, DDT, any function, if we have a function and we take the first derivative, that's according to the definition, that's, you all know what that is. We're taking the limit of f of t plus delta t minus f of t. Right, that's the first order differentiation, right? First order, the first derivative. So last time we came up with a design, a proposal. Let's try. The last time we said we tried approximating the first derivative by kind of first order difference. So we tried approximating this action of calculating the first derivative by calculating the difference. The last time I said, let's try this filter so that y of n is defined as x of n minus x of n minus 1, and we know that these two samples are actually separated in time by t being the sampling period, the inverse of sampling. T is defined as 1 over the sampling frequency. Okay. So that should give us intuitively, this should be a nice approximation to differentiation, to the action of calculating the first derivative. And we agree on that. This looks like, because these are, so it's kind of like, this is not very rigorous, but if we let the sampling period to approach 0, then this is not very rigorous. So let me say the idea. The idea is that if t is sufficiently small, then this is sort of like take the first derivative taken at multiple sampling period. That's the idea. But however, but we know that the sampling period is never going to be infinitesimal. 它永远不会是无穷小，right? It's never going to be infinitesimal. But for a finitely small t, we know that there is going to be some deviation from ideal. So we talked about the ideal. In this case, a differentiator should have, we know that the ideal response, the desired response, the DS stands for desired. The desired response should be J omega divided by T for any omega from minus pi to pi. Actually, okay. The ideal response, because we know that the first order derivative, if we take the first derivative with respect to time, then in frequency, conceptually this is equal to J big omega, omega being the hertz frequency, the frequency in continuous time, right? And since very early in the semester, if you recall, we have defined that I have introduced, kind of emphasized that this is not bilinear transformation, by the way. Okay? So for this, in the context of sampling, when you see small omega relates to the big omega, the frequency before sampling. The relation is to divide by t, if you recall that. Do you remember that? Because that's a simple relation in the context of sampling. The simple relation, according to the notation of our textbook, small omega and big omega they have already a correspondence by this definition. Recall, early in chapter 4, in the context of sampling, not in the context of bilinear transformations, different context. Okay, so in the context of sampling, we have defined omega basically is omega times big T, right? Big T being the sampling period. So that's why we come up with this desire. So now we are back to discrete time and the filter design. We have the desired response as a function of omega in the frequency domain. So hope that we can agree that the desired response for a differentiator should be J times small omega and the normalization factor T in here. Okay, can we move on? So if this is the desired response, so today I'd like to show you the last time I mentioned, last time we spent some, we actually calculated explicitly this is a design, okay? This is a design, and with this relation is already it specifies a impulse response. Let me say this. Okay? This equation specifies an impulse response, and that impulse response is h of n equals to plus 1 divided by t for time 0 and minus time 1 divided by t for time 1. So that's the impulse response specified by this equation. It gives you, it defines the filter. It defines the FIR filter. And this, according to our definition, this filter is a type 4 filter. Okay? This is a type 4 filter, an example of a type 4 filter because it satisfies that relation. We have anti-symmetry around time 1/2. We have anti-symmetry around time 1/2, and what else? And there are in total two non-zero samples. Two non-zero samples, actually n is even. Okay? In that case, for this case, I hope you understand that now, in this case, it's type 4 with n, big N equals to 1. Okay, that's an example of the type 4. Right? But it turned out that last time we also explicitly calculate the frequency response of this filter H. Okay, so this is our design. Already, it is a valid design. But we know that ideally we want the frequency response to at least the magnitude response. The desired response, the magnitude should be a linear function. The magnitude response should be a linear function of omega. So you can calculate the slope here. The slope here is 1 over t, okay? So that's the desired, the magnitude response. But our design turns out, the result of our design has a frequency, a magnitude response of something like the sine function, okay? So for sufficiently low frequency, I forgot the exact, I heard something like 2 sine, what? By 2t? By 2. Okay, yeah, thank you. Okay, so there might have to be a 1 over t somewhere. Right. So anyway, so I want to emphasize that, yeah, here, yeah, of course, we started from intuition, and we end up having this design, and we can calculate the frequency response for sure. Of course, it's going to deviate from the ideal case. Just like we designed in low-pass filter. Again, we have a proposal, but we know that the performance is going to be less ideal at high frequency than at frequency. But at low frequency, actually, the approximation is pretty well. The approximation is pretty good at low frequency, but not at high frequency. So now the question becomes, can we do better? Can we do better by option 1, switching to type 3? Option 2, just somehow increase the length of our filter. Okay? So next, let's switch to this board. So next, we are going to follow the same kind of procedure, the same kind of steps as we used to design a low-pass filter. We are going to do basically window the ideal response. Okay, so in the next, I'm going to first calculate the inverse Fourier transform of this ideal response. So we get an infinitely long. Okay, we will get an infinitely long impulse response which lasts from -infinity to +infinity. And what is the next step? Not surprisingly, we'll keep the middle part and shift everything to the right. So quite the same thing. And let's see what is the result. Okay. So can we do better than simply taking the difference? And the answer clearly is yes. So here, where's my other? So the desired response, since it is j omega divided by t, for basically it is what it is. Okay, no need to. For any omega from -pi to pi. But it turns out that if we apply an inverse Fourier transform, the inverse dTft, and you will be able to calculate. So the desired ideal response will be, you can calculate that, 1 over 2 pi by applying the inverse dTft formula, -pi to pi, and we are going to integrate the ideal response. We're going to project it back to e to the j omega n, and then we take the integral over all possible omega. Okay, so you can do this by this is actually we can have a closed form. So I'll leave out the detail, and the detail will be we will have. Actually, the result is very simple. I want you to kind of take a look. The result is very simple, really, for n not equal to 0. And is 0 at n equals to 0. Okay, that's the result. Yeah. So it turns out that you can follow steps. It's simple enough. Because there's omega here and omega there, right? So this integral you can calculate it by integration by part. 部分积分、分布积分 integration by part. Integration by part, you'll be able to figure this out. So let's make a plot. It's kind of interesting. Very simple result. Very simple result, and the result is anti-symmetric around time 0. Why? Because at time 0 is 0, and at time 1 is -1. right? Time minus 1. And time minus 1 is anti-symmetric, and time minus 1 is plus 1. And so on and so forth. And for time 2, it's going to, so there's this factor minus 1 to the nth power, right? So we know that the result is going to be that the samples are going to alternate, plus or minus. For every next sample, the sign is going to alternate. So the next sample will be 1/2. And the sample following that will be minus 1/3. And so on, plus 1/4. Very interesting result, okay? And it's going to be anti-symmetric around for negative time. And as well as a kind of ideal low-pass filter. This filter, because it is ideal, it lasts forever, okay? From minus infinity to infinity. It has an infinite support, so to speak. Okay? So next thing here, we can try to apply any window. Okay? So what I'm going to show on the PowerPoint next is the result of applying Kaiser window. Okay? So the general idea is that we can then apply a window of finite length. Second step, applying a window of finite length. Somehow truncate and just ignore whatever that is left over those tails, which will make a truncation on both sides. And then the final step is to shift everything to the right. Same idea. Okay, same idea. Does that sound okay? So you can, actually here you can freely note that here as a FR design problem, you can freely choose whatever window you want to try. Okay? You freely choose whatever window you want to try, and so this WN is for you to choose. And in general, we should expect the approximation to the ideal response to be better if we make N this. Actually, to be consistent, I should call this K. If we just extend the kind of equip as much of the middle part as possible, the approximation should be improved based on kind of L2 criteria. Okay, the same thing. Same principle applies. Okay? So here I'm not going to dig into the details of comparing different windows. Okay? But I want to emphasize two things. Okay? Let's kind of contemplate upon our results. Okay? So here we see that some kind of filter that has alternating sample. 正负号交错, alternating sample. They mentioned that in general this is a kind of feature of a high-pass filter. The high-pass filter often has the property of alternating samples in the time domain. Whereas the low-pass filter has more smoother variation. If you think about it. Okay, we'll come back to that later. Okay, we'll come back to that later when we talk about designing a high-pass filter. Okay, but I want to kind of jump ahead and give you this conclusion, kind of general observation. A high-pass filter, oftentimes the high-pass filter, if you look at it's an impulse response in time domain, the samples alternate. The sign, the samples alternate from one sample to the next, with plus, minus. That's kind of feature, a characteristic of a high-pass filter. Why are you so happy there? You guys being very happy. We are in a different dimension now. Okay, high-pass filter, alternating sample. Okay, that's the first observation, alternating sample. That's a feature of a high-pass filter. And the second thing I want you to tell me if let's say, we find an appropriate some kind of a Kaiser window. But after Kaiser windowing, do we have which type of filter do we have? After, in this case, we calculate the ideal result, and then we apply a window to keep the middle part, some kind of Kaiser window. Well, do we have type 3 or type 4 right here? Is it a type 3 or type 4? type 3, type 4. It's actually a type 3. You check the definition. Okay? Type 3 has a feature. There's a middle point which is 0. The kind of anchor point for symmetry. And in a type 3 filter, we have a middle point that is 0. So that's a feature of type 3. But type 4, interior, +1, -1. There's no middle point. There's no middle point to whatsoever. Okay, this is a type 4. Okay, that's a type 3. Okay, so that's another thing I want to point out. So let's ensure that this is a type 3. Okay, so to summarize, here we start from the ideal response and we apply the window method, and we end up with a type 3 filter. And in principle, you should expect that the longer we keep the middle part, the better approximation you can get. Okay, so now let me switch to the PowerPoint slide. There's one surprising thing here I want to show you. It turns out that if we start from the ideal response, we end up with a type 3. We are kind of restricted to end up with a type 3, right? Because the ideal response has a middle point, which is 0. Right? 中间就是类似0嘛, so we are restricted. 我有不受到限制. We are restricted to end up with a type 3 filter. But it turns out that if you are willing to kind of move the ideal response to the right by 1/2 sample, that sounds a bit strange. Moving the ideal response to the right by 1/2 of the sample, then it turns out that we can come up with a type 4. I'll leave the detail, but let's in the following slide, I'm going to show you a comparison of between the performance type 3 versus type 4. Okay, so I'm just going to show you one slide. I did 2 slides, including the slide. Okay. The next slide, we're going to show, somewhat surprisingly, when we want to design a discrete time differentiator while using a Kaiser window. It turns out that type 4 is better than type 3. Okay, type 4 is better than type 3. And the result of comparison is right here. So here on the left we have a type 3, okay? With a middle point, that's a feature of type 3, a 0 point, a 0 in the middle, a 0 in the middle. But type 4 is such like a modification of this thing right here, okay? We have no middle point, but we have like immediately anti-symmetric like two samples right in the middle. Otherwise, it's still like both of them are anti-symmetric around a certain time. But only this is anti-symmetric around time 5, and that's anti-symmetric around time 2.5. And so that is to say, this filter has so many non-zero samples. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, you will see the length of this filter is 11. And the length of that filter is just what? 6. Can you agree on that? The length of this filter is 11. The length of that filter is 6. So we said that in general we expect the longer we have in the time domain, the better approximation we can get in the frequency domain. That's generally true, but now if you compare across type 3 versus type 4. So here is an example that actually, even though this type 4 filter is shorter than the type 3, turns out that the frequency response has a better approximation to the ideal than the type 3. Okay? So here is the next thing we look at. So here is the frequency response. Ideally, we want to draw a straight line, right? Ideally, we want the response to be a straight line from 0 to all the way to the highest frequency. Ideally, the ideal response should be a straight line from 0 all the way to somewhere here. But which one do you say is the better approximation to a straight line? The one on the right, which is a type 4. Even though the type 4 filter in this case is shorter. So that raises a kind of the next thing, let's finish the explanation here. So we just plot, so this third column is the error, approximation error. The ideal case is a straight line, right? So we know that in here, the approximation, sorry, this is strange. Oh, never mind. The approximation error here for type 4 is smaller. It's smaller, in the range of, let's say if our range of interest is from frequency 0 to DC all the way to 0.85. So we're plotting the approximation error from 0 to 0.85. Okay? So here clearly we see the error is smaller for type 4 than for type 3, right? So that raises kind of an interesting point, okay? So if we just borrow all the concept of starting from the ideal response and then move on to keep the middle part and shifting everything to the right, then we are restricted to have a type 3. And let's keep in mind that in this case, type 4 has a better performance in terms of the high frequency approximation. And there's a reason, actually. There's a reason. There's a restriction. In this case, the restriction comes from that any type 3 filter is restricted to have 0 gain at the Nyquist rate. Let me say that again. The true restriction comes from the fact, it's a matter of fact, actually. You can show that any type 3 filter, you calculate the magnitude response at frequency pi, the answer has to be 0. So that kind of poses a constraint. Poses a constraint. Okay? Whenever we design type 3 filter, please keep in mind that the frequency, your magnitude response, however you design is so fancy, whatever. You will get a response which has a 0 magnitude response at frequency pi. It's a restriction. It's a constraint. It's a matter of fact. But it turns out that type 4 does not have this constraint. So therefore, when we want to design kind of a high frequency enhancement system, which is our differentiator, we certainly don't want the frequency at the magnitude at for the highest frequency to be 0. We certainly don't want that. So therefore, keep in mind, if you ever design a filter like this, whenever you want the high frequency response, whenever you want the magnitude response at the highest frequency, which is like this, if you want the response there to be non-zero, please avoid using type 3. Okay? You should consider type 4. But type 4 does not come immediately from windowing the ideal response. So in one way, you can think of it as a ideal response shifted to the time in time by 1/2 sample. Okay, by 1/2 sample. Actually, another thing to mention here, another thing worth mentioning is that for this type 3 filter, what is the group delay? The group delay is n divided by 2 always. Okay, so here in this case n is 10, so the group delay is 5. Right? But for type 4, n is 5, so the group delay is 2.5. It's a non-integer group delay. Okay, so if you can tolerate that, actually here the group delay is 1/2. If we can kind of, we don't bother, if we don't mind having a fractional and a half integer delay. 如果是半整数, if you don't mind, 如果你不在意的话, if you don't mind the group delay to be half integer, then we can freely choose to implement our filter in type 4 or type 2 actually. So that's kind of a nice comparison in the textbook we would like to share with you. Any comment here? Anything that isn't clear? 有没有听不懂的地方? Okay, type 3 versus type 4. Okay, so